Good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah Lucas, the 2020 to 2021 president of the MAP board. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's annual meeting and to the MAP annual conference. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 8:30. Thanks for everyone who is attending this morning. You can go to the next slide. So first, I'd like to just make a note that we really couldn't do anything. We couldn't do any of this. We couldn't run this amazing conference without the significant financial support of our sponsors. So I'd like to thank the following firms and agencies for their generous financial investment in MAP and in this conference. So we really appreciate the generosity of all of these partners and are really appreciative to be able to put this conference on, albeit virtually this year. So thank you. Next slide. I'd also like to thank the conference committee. The conference committee meets year-round and collaborates closely with MAP staff to plan and execute the MAP conference. They help select the sessions and keynote speakers. They help moderate the sessions, and they provide guidance into the development of the conference and the conference agenda. I think we have a lot to thank them for this year. It's been an incredible experience and a lot of really great, helpful content. So thanks again to the conference committee. So next, I'd like to just review the meeting agenda. I think everyone has seen this. We're going to be going through a couple of reports and then passing on the changing of the guard to our next president. So I'll start with the president's report. If we could go to the next slide. So I'll just say a little bit about the work of the MAP board before handing things over. The MAP board is composed of some of the smartest and most forward-thinking professional planners in the industry. Our work is focused on the big picture, identifying the issues facing our industry, and providing staff with direction through policy. This leaves us, the board, free to engage with professionals from other industries in order to help us develop policies and to meet with our members to learn about what they need from the chapter. Our work starts in January each year. Each year at its annual retreat in January, the MAP board identifies its work plan for the year. So over 2 days in that retreat, the board deliberates and discusses the most pressing issues that we face as planners. In January 2021, where we met virtually, of course, we identified climate change and housing as the 2 topics to study this fiscal year. Typically, when a policy priority is identified, we research and write a new policy for that theme. But since the American Planning Association very recently adopted a climate change policy guide, we're simply writing 2 addendums to that guide in order to make it more Michigan-centric. Climate migration is a real issue. The Great Lakes Basin has a real opportunity to reshape itself as a safe harbor and could experience some significant in-migration as climate change hits other parts of the US harder. So we'll be addressing that, and also a section on Michigan's freshwater Great Lakes. Our second policy focus area is housing, and it was this topic that the board spent much of 2021 linking on with professionals who can help the organization better understand housing from the perspectives of other industries. So we met with a lot of different people with a lot of really incredible knowledge, professionals from organizations like nonprofits like Housing North, Housing Next, and Detroit Future City. We met with leaders from the Housing Michigan Coalition, including the Home Builders, Michigan Municipal League, the Grand Rapids Chamber. We met with CENAIR, which is a community development finance institution, and the Michigan Land Bank this summer. We also met with the Manufactured Housing Association, the Modular Home Industry, and Huntington Bank, also this summer. And then earlier this month, we met with MSHDA, MEDC, and CEDAM to hear their perspective on state programs and policies. We're also thrilled to announce that we've already begun to implement some of the work around housing themes that we're learning about. We secured a grant in June of this year for zoning reform in Michigan guide from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. And I think that this will be is a really timely and much needed resource as we face all of the housing challenges that our communities are going through right now. The objective of the project is to develop a toolkit or guidebook that will help planners update and modernize zoning codes and other regulations in order to expand the opportunities to develop more housing locally. Ultimately, it will include guidance on master plan language, zoning changes, and communication strategies. So just an incredible resource for our planners in this really urgent housing crisis that we're facing. So stay tuned, we'll be reporting regularly on that initiative. In other grant news, we work hard to develop and maintain relationships with a wide range of state agencies and nonprofits, and over the years have created many strong partnerships with many entities. This year, we worked with EGLE, the Environment, Great Lakes and Economy Office, in a partnership. We've partnered with them on many projects over the years, and the Coastal Leadership Academy piloted in fall 2020 is the culmination of years of resource building, training, and collaboration. That pilot will now be tested in 5 regions in 2022. We also partnered with MEDC to develop tear sheet planning and zoning resources for RRC communities. That's a successful collaboration that resulted in nearly 40 informational tear sheets as resources for RRC communities. And we're also providing on-demand planning and zoning training for RRC communities. It's a really, really incredible service. We've also continued our longstanding relationship with MDOT and its Safe Routes to School program to deliver Transportation Bonanza 11, educating more than 200 professionals. This year, MAP was also represented on the MDOT 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. And our 2020 to 2021 MAP education and training programs were successful in spite of COVID. We were able to manage everything virtually because of our amazing MAP staff. The annual Planning Michigan 2020 conference was virtual and was a huge success. The registrations were consistent with our in-person event, which is remarkable. And we were able to Zoom in keynote speakers like Richard Rothstein, Carson Beese, and a very relevant Winter is Coming session, which was the highlight of the conference. So in December 2020, it was such a hit, in fact, that we ran the Winter Institute with a focus on equitable economic development. This was instead of last fiscal year's May 2020 Spring Institute, which was canceled at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Then in January 2021, in partnership with MEDC, we ran a reprise of the Winter is Coming session from the conference, along with a bunch of value-added content associated with that. Transportation Bonanza was also virtual in February, but MAP staff and our partners at MDOT and SRTS organized an amazing multidisciplinary training. And we came to realize that while virtual training is not ideal, it works. And so we managed throughout the year to provide those opportunities, including in March 2021, when we pivoted and ran our full regional planning and zoning workshop series virtually. And we had more registrations than ever before. So this tells us maybe a couple things. One is that maybe people don't really like to drive long distances for training. So we'll continue to provide a combination of in-person and remote learning opportunities this fiscal year. So there is opportunity here, even in COVID, with adjusting our plans and being able to make education more accessible to our partners. So even with everything that happened last year, we trained more than 2,300 individuals in between 20 and 21. We also published 5 issues of the Michigan Planner magazine, which includes some high-level content for a very diverse membership of professionals, officials, elected leaders, and zoning administrators. And finally, we did a lot of advocacy work. MAP staff had some great support from the law committee, with Mo Ayub serving this last year as the board liaison to the committee. And we addressed bills relating to short-term rentals, sand and gravel mining, and other issues with direct advocacy with legislators in Lansing and by generating members to weigh in with their legislators. The law committee member, Dr. Richard Norton, professor of planning and law, also wrote an amicus brief on behalf of MAP and Canton Township for a case dealing with their natural features protection ordinance. And you can read more about that in the next issue of the Michigan Planner magazine for the whole story. And finally, the MAP Law Committee completed amendments to the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act and met with partner organizations MML and the Michigan Township Association throughout 2020 and into 2021 to iron out all of the details, of which there are many. We'll next be looking for a bill sponsor to advance that bill. So this is a lot, even with all of the adjustments that were required over the last year, staff and MAP board and committee members were able to get a lot done. This isn't even everything, and everything that I've mentioned does entail just an incredible amount of work. So I'm really proud and grateful of MAP staff and board for being able to put this together for us. We'll be talking about some of these projects in more detail in the annual report that will be released in November. So look for that report for more details about what the chapter has accomplished over the last year. So with that, I'd now like to entertain a motion to approve the 2020-2021 Board President's Report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next part of the agenda. And I'm going to introduce Brad Kay, who is going to be serving as the MAP Board Secretary and Treasurer for has served as the MAP Board Secretary and Treasurer through 2020 and 2021. So he's going to give us a report on our financials over the last year.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Although I thought you were going to appoint me for another year for a second there. So thank you for not doing that. But again, hello. Good morning to everyone. My name is Brad Kay, as Sarah indicated. And for the past year, I've actually served the association as the Secretary Treasurer, which covers the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And in that role, it's both my responsibility and my pleasure to present to you the financial picture for the final year. The good news for those of you that like cutting to the bottom line or reading the last chapter of a book is our books are balanced. We had a good year financially. We actually made a profit. We'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But overall, the organization continues to be in strong financial health. If we can advance the slide, and perhaps we can start a little bit talking about the revenues that the organization has had. I almost said city. But our total revenues were just a little bit over $500,000, 530,350 to be exact. About 40% of that comes from your membership dues. So the finances that help run the organization in large part come from all of us as members of the organization itself. However, the educational programs, including this conference, are an important component of it as well. As you'll see by the second bar on the chart, about 30% of our revenue for the organization comes from those types of events. And then the balance comes from a number of different sources, which include things such as grants, sponsorships, and some miscellaneous income sources. We can advance the slide again. And we'll talk a little bit on the other side of the ledger, the expenses of the organization. As you might expect, a large part of what we spend our funds on with the MAP Association is staffing and benefits and salaries and wages. About 60%, in fact, about $321,000 of our total amounts. The remainder are for things, again, that you would typically see, non-wage costs associated with things such as educational program, printing, postage, and then the building operations as well. If we combine all of those, we actually closed the books, as I said, with a profit this year of about $67,000. I would point out that in that number is a forgivable CARES Act PPP loan of $48,000 that the organization was able to secure. The staff have met all of the requirements for the forgiveness, and that loan has in fact been forgiven, and it is included in that $67,000 profit number. And then if we can move again to the next slide, which are our grants. I think all know, hopefully you all know, that we work on a number of grants within this organization, and they're an important component not only of our revenues, but of our operations. This slide shows all of the different ones that were secured and administered in the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And again, as you would expect, they're in various stages. So some are much more advanced, some have been more expended than others. For example, we can point to the Coastal Leadership Academy 2 grant, which is actually an $80,000 grant. But as you can see by this, there's a very little bit of it that was recognized in last fiscal year because frankly, we had just barely begun to work on it before our books closed on June the 30th. I would also editorialize a little bit here on the grant side of things is that they're an important component of our operations. They help us to advance the mission of MAP. They help us to develop agencies and relationships, I should say, with state agencies and other funding organizations. And importantly to all of you as MAP members, they help to stretch your membership dollars. So they continue to be a focus, they continue to be an area of emphasis and will be not only last year, but into the coming years as well. So overall, it was a successful year for MAP, including financially. Sarah outlined all the operational issues and challenges that we had at the board, but financially, in spite of COVID, in spite of the work from home challenges that staff had to face, the virtual learning model that we had to move to, our program continued over this past year and it improved as well. And I would also note that our finances are required to be audited every year. Lucky me, I get the one of the 3 years that happens to be audited. So we're in the midst of that process right at the moment. We expect to have those results completed by December 2021, and we'll report back at that point in time to the board and to the membership. And then finally, I want to thank Tracy Foppel, who's MAP's Director of Operations. Although I get to stand up in front of you all and present the results of this, Tracy is really the one behind the scenes doing all of the work, and her incredible attention to detail as she manages our finances, which are sometimes pretty complex given all of the grant work that's necessary, has been a resource to us that we can't thank her enough. I can give you an assurance on behalf of the board that we are in good hands, and MAP's finances are definitely in good hands with Tracy. She certainly does an amazing job and deserves the recognition for that. So that concludes my report. This is an informational report. There's no motion necessary. So at this point in time, I will turn it over to Wayne Bier, who is a member of the MAP board and the organization's professional development officer. Wayne?
Great. Well, thanks, Brad. And good morning, everybody. I'm Wayne Bier. I'm the professional development officer for the chapter. And this is a new executive committee position that began this year. And I've completed my first year of a 3-year term on that. I'm in my second term on the board. And the responsibility of this position is to promote professional development, such as the event you're attending today, and continuing education for professional planners and students. The PDO is required to be an AICP member based on APA requirements. And the PDO also serves as an ambassador for the association. I've worked real closely with the MAP staff over the last year to increase the visibility and activity of the PDO. In my first year, I worked with staff to develop a PDO job description and work plan. And some of the basic functions of the PDO are perhaps familiar to you, and some might be new. So in terms of outreach, like promoting the AICP among members and helping them connect to the training they need to be successful candidates for the exam. MAP also participates at university visits to talk about the chapter and how students can connect as part of their career journey. And in terms of accreditation of university planning programs is critically important to produce high quality and knowledgeable planners into our industry. I work with the MAP executive director to assure that the chapter input to the accreditation review process takes place. This year, MAP participated in the University of Michigan's reaccreditation by writing a chapter report and participating in professional development and professional meetings to provide input to the Planning Accreditation Board during their visit. That's a really important 5-year review that takes place for our accredited universities. And also fellow board member Kami Palthu-Kuchi and I from Kami's from Wayne State. We organized a MAP board university faculty meeting where we discussed the value of accredited planning programs and other topics that connect universities and the chapter. So really important linkage that we have with our universities. In terms of continuing education, moving forward, I'll be working with the MAP deputy director to review chapter professional development workshops and seminars and assist with chapter conferences, workshops, events, and programs aimed at training of our professional planners and planning commissioners and elected officials. And ethics, this position also serves as the chapter's advocate for strong support of the AICP Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct by all our chapter members, and for strong adherence and enforcement of the Code of Ethics. I worked with AICP Commissioner Aaron Perdue to create and teach an ethics course here at the conference. We had over 100 participants earlier this week on that. And organizational ties with APA PDO Group is another responsibility. Nationally, the PDOs meet as a group twice annually and also communicate regularly throughout the year. This year, MAP provided a lot of input into changes on the AICP exam, as well as the new CM credit requirements, which you should all be looking at here, that we're going to be launched in 2022, next year. The new CM requirements add 1 equity unit and 1 sustainability credit, and change the required law and ethics credits from 1.5 to 1 hour each. So now a total of 4 CM mandatory topic credits are required in the 2-year period. However, the total number of CM credits that must be logged during the reporting period is going to remain the same. So by the numbers, the Michigan chapter currently has 373 AICP members and 11 FAICP members, which is the highest level that you can have. And in terms of our CM credits offered by MAP, Sarah mentioned some of the numbers. We had 2,300 total program participants, but for CM credits, we had nearly 1,000 participants for our CM credits. These included 23 credits at the last year's Planning Michigan Conference, 5 at the Winter Institute, 3 at the Winter Cities, 12 at the Transportation Bonanza, 6 at the Spring Institute, and we had 9 book reads and 13 credits offered for that. So a lot of activity over this past year during an extraordinary time. So thank you, and please reach out to me if you have any questions about sitting for the exam, securing your credits, or anything else related to the AICP and your professional development. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Good morning. Thank you, Wayne. I'm going to pick it up here for the nominating committee report. Hi, everyone. My name is Jarrell Harris. I am the past president of the MAP board and the chair of the MAP nominating committee. This year, I was joined by Christina Anderson and Sherry Williams. Williams, my apologies, on the board. And the past president traditionally serves as the chair of the nominating committee. The purpose of the nominating committee is to consider candidates who will run for election to the board. The committee considers both individuals who nominate themselves, as well as those who are approached by the nominating committee and asked to run. The nominating committee takes this responsibility very seriously. We work hard to make sure our board is diverse and is representative of our membership. We consider things like geographic representation, sector. We like to have a mix of public, private, and nonprofit planners on the board, gender, and race. This year, there were 2 excellent incumbents who ran unopposed in the August 2021 election. The 2 incumbents who were reelected are Mohammed Ayub and Wayne B.A. Welcome back, Mo and Wayne, to your second 3-year terms. Also, we have student board members from Michigan State we have 2 student board members, Alex Bolin and Mallory Prangley. We are so excited to welcome these student board members this year from Grand Valley State University. This is actually the first time Grand Valley has hosted students on the board, and subsequently, they will also host the February 2022 MAP Student Conference, which is absolutely a fantastic opportunity to connect with our students. So hopefully more of you will be able to join us this year. Grand Valley produces high quality planners for Michigan communities, and we couldn't be more excited to include them on our board of directors. Welcome, Alex and Mallory. And now here's the 2021-2022 MAP Board of Directors, and all of their names are listed in your agenda for today. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Lucas, now our immediate past president. She's going to figuratively hand over the megaphone for a changing of the guard.
Thank you, Jarrell. I'd like to thank the MAP board and staff for the opportunity to participate. Sorry, I had to turn my video on there. I'd like to thank MAP and the board for the opportunity to participate on the board and as president. I've really learned a lot from this group, and I've been really inspired by their knowledge and their passion as we work together to build our understanding of some of the most important issues facing our communities over the last several years, like equity and opportunity and finding common ground in divided communities. 2020 was a weird year to become MAP president, but it was a weird year for everything. So it was kind of par for the course in that respect. And it also gave me, and I think all of us, a new appreciation for the fact that we have a board and staff that's really exemplary and has been able to keep calm and carry on with our work throughout all of this uncertainty and change. And while I'm ending my term as president, I'm really grateful to be able to remain on the board for the next year as a non-voting past president. But now I'm, like Jarrell said, figuratively handing over the MAP megaphone to Carmen. For anyone that's unfamiliar with the megaphone, just a few words on that tradition. It has the name of every president of MAP and MSPO, if you remember that acronym, Michigan Society of Planning Officials, dating back to 1945, engraved on the plates on the side of the megaphone. It's a tradition that's been around for that long. We pass it off to the new president each year. Of course, there's no tradition that COVID hasn't affected or disrupted. So it seems only right that I didn't get it last year and that we can't physically hand it off this year. But Jarrell, who was our last pre-COVID president, still has the microphone, and we trust it will make it to Carmen eventually. So with that, I'd like to introduce Carmen Aventini, the 2021-2022 MAP president, who I've had the pleasure of working with on the board and learning from for the last several years. Carmen, I'm really looking forward to your leadership over the next year, and I'm really glad I'll be able to continue to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for those kind words. Good morning to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm supposed to make a shout out, and as I thought about this, the word I want to shout out is resiliency, and it's definitely a topic that we talk about a lot and is a major part of this conference. And as I think of resiliency, I'd like to point out what Sarah has done the past year. She not only moved from Traverse City up to Marquette, she also changed jobs and was helping and allowed us to maneuver through this pandemic, utilizing Zoom for the first time to handle all of our meetings. And the entire time she did so with a high level of intelligence, grace, and always a friendly smile. So I think I'd like to thank her for what she's done the past year. And she really serves as a role model for all of us during these crazy times, that you can still overcome things and carry on a friendliness towards everybody. And I think that's important for us to use as a role model. So now on to the next slide. What I would like to do is introduce Brad Kay is our next vice president, our incoming vice president. Brad is the city manager for the city of Midland, but as he likes to tell us all, he is a recovering planner. He was a planning director and has spent most of his career in planning, and had also done a marvelous job the past couple of years with all of the with the flooding and the dam breaks and all in the Midland area. And so we're really lucky to have him as our vice president this year. And by the way, he's also a fellow Buffalo Bills fan. So thank you, Brad. Looking forward to working with you yet another year. Next, I'd like to introduce for the next slide, Mo Ayub. And Mo is the director of planning, I hope I have the right term, for the city of Westland. And he does an awesome job with that community, and also has done a really great job in being a board member for MAP, and he will be our secretary for the secretary treasurer for the coming year. Now, just so you know, Mo is expected to move up next year to the vice president position, and the presidency the following year. It's part of our ascendancy policy. And what's really nice about that is it gives folks an opportunity to learn from the people before them, just like I've learned from Sarah and from Jarrell before her. We can go to the next slide. Now, as a part of our board, we also have the executive committee. And as you can see, you've met everybody here that's listed. And there are certain decisions that we as a committee have to make, executive committee on behalf of the organization. And those are all the folks that will be involved in that. If we can go to the next one. And last but not least, we have our MAP professional team. I want to thank them for all they do to keep this amazing organization going. This has certainly been an extraordinary year, and I'm beyond impressed with the staff handling of the new demands and the resulting skill sets necessary to pull off a remote conference. They've actually done this twice, and as we've talked about even before this session, it's just gone off so well. They've done a great job. Next slide, please. And one last time, I want to thank all of the sponsors. We couldn't do this without all of these firms. And I think it's of note that they've continued to support throughout the pandemic as we've switched over to the virtual conference, and eventually we'll switch back, hopefully next year, to not virtual. And so thank you so much to all of these companies and organizations for supporting us. And so with that, it's time to call for a motion to adjourn the annual meeting. So do I have a motion from a board member to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So,
A second, please.
it's Brad, so second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the board, to the staff, and also to all the participants that showed up for this early morning meeting. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to a great year, and enjoy the remainder of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.